All right. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of the Retro Game Club podcast. I am Rob, and with me is someone else who denounced the royal family, is Hugh.
Yes. No longer. I'm going to be living in Canada half time now, and giving up all my noble titles.
Yes, the very strange sounding titles that no one knows what they mean.
Yes, I think a lot of them are just made up. I think, I think there are like historic royal titles, and then they just make random ones up when there's a new member of the royal family.
Because no one knows. They could say that
Nobody
was a thing.
knows.
No one knows.
Right. Earl of Vermont or whatever. Like nobody knows.
Yeah. So what have you been up to?
Let's see. I'll start with the first one here. I just noticed every year when Valentine's come out, I always look for Nintendo-themed Valentines. It's been a while since I've seen some, but there's a new set here. I got these at, they're at Walmart and I think Jewel Osco. Not that anyone outside of Chicago knows what Jewel Osco is.
Yeah, never heard of that one.
Right. It's a grocery store chain that I think is only in Chicago, but they're everywhere here, but I don't think they're anywhere else. And yeah, I was debating, like, if I gave these to people, would that be considered some kind of Me Too thing? So look at the back here. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
32 Valentine tattoos?
Yeah, there's Valentine tattoos, and then there's cards. So basically, you have like 30, I think there's 32 little tiny Valentine's cards, and then you can put a temporary tattoo in there as well. So you have Mario, Bowser, Princess, Wario, Peach, different variations of Mario, Yoshi. I think there's 32 distinct tattoos. No, it's 8 super designs, it says.
You should put one of those on and see if anyone at work believes that it's real.
You know what? There's 8 different cards and 32 different tattoos. So that's a lot of different tattoos, man.
Yeah.
But they're pretty innocuous. It's Mario's got Mamma Mia. It's Valentine's Day. Someone might think that's cultural appropriation or something. I don't know. Luigi is You Are a Super Friend. Yoshi is Here We Go. Happy Valentine's Day.
Wait,
Princess...
that's a Valentine tattoo that friend zones you?
No, this is the card. It's what the card says.
Luigi totally friend zones you?
Yeah, he just friend zones you. Yoshi just says, Here we go. The 3 princess variations just say Happy Valentine's Day. Now, Bowser says, Be mine. Exclamation point.
That's nice.
Okay, that one maybe. Have a great Valentine's Day. Power up. Yeah. So most of them are not, I don't know if kids are still supposed to, still trade these things at school. I assume most schools have banned it because
the one kid might not get one, and
one kid might not get one, or one might get one that's inappropriate, or who knows. There's a myriad of reasons why I can see them being banned at schools. But I don't plan to give these out to people. I'm just going to put them somewhere in my shelf of random things. Going back to last episode, we talked about the arcade 1-up pinball games.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't really look at those closely before the show. Are those mechanical pinball, or are they just a really long screen? I think they're a long screen.
It's a virtual pinball, which I didn't realize before the last episode. So the whole thing I said about the physics being wrong because they're smaller is all wrong.
Okay. I was sort of wondering about it, because I'm like, I looked at them later, I'm like, that doesn't look like, is that, when we were reading them last week, we were just looking at them, again, I didn't do my homework. I thought it was like a mock-up. You know what I mean? I saw the picture, I'm like, oh, that's just a mock-up of what the final thing's going to look like. And then as I read into them, I saw, oh no, wait a minute, they are just a screen.
Now, if you look at real nice virtual pinball tables, it kind of uses a Kinect, actually uses the Kinect Eye or whatever it's called. Well, it's just the Kinect device from Microsoft, where it gives you that 3D effect that actually looks really impressive. And also the screen, it's usually a 40-inch LCD screen. It's right at the top of the table with a little piece of glass over it. These are a little bit more sunk down, I think. So they just don't look as good. I don't know. And they're smaller than most other tables too, I think.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of novelty pieces. I don't know.
Now, if they were hackable where you could put other pinball tables in there, that would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I'm sure someone will figure it out. I don't know if the other cabinets they sell, if people have figured out how to hack them, just because I've never been really interested in those cabinets.
No, I mean the Atari Star Wars one, I would. I mean, I have that real. That's one of the cabinets I have, the real one. But it'd be those are nice though.
Yeah. And then I'd say last up, I've been looking at. I'm kind of looking through my massive hoard of games and trying to figure out if there's like things that I will clearly never play in my entire life, and I should just get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at a couple. When I bought my 3DO, this was like, it was at a Midwest Gaming Classic, and it was at like an old location. It was the location up in Economawalk, unless you went there, you've never heard of it. And it was a long time ago, and I bought like my 3DO for, I don't know, $70, let's say. And the guy selling it is like, hey, for like an extra couple bucks, would you take all these sports games off my hands? I got a bunch of sports games. No one's ever going to buy these. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I bought like a bunch of really terrible 3DO sports games. One of them is something called like ESPN Teaches You How to Hit a Baseball. That's not the full title of the game, but it's something along those lines. And I remember that from working at the game store. Like, nobody ever bought it. I think we eventually cleared it out for a couple dollars. Like, because who wants an interactive, like, to be kind of blunt, like people who are buying a 3DO, they're not playing a lot of baseball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's incompatible to be into video games and be into like playing sports, but being into like the most high-end, overpriced, niche-y, geeky system and being into sports, not a lot of overlap between the two. Like, there's a whole lot of people who play sports and own a PlayStation, right? Very, very common. This is, again, it's like an outlier. Like, this is a system just for like hardcore gamers who want to spend a lot of money to get the newest system. And anyhow, I'm like, well, what am I going to get for that on eBay? Like $5? And then I guess because it was so unpopular, it's kind of rare, and the going rate for it is about $80.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Which kind of surprised me. So I think I will probably unload that one. And I have some other, like, again, a lot of these, like, ESPN teaches you how to do some sport game for 3DO. And it's not really even a game. It's more like, one of those videos you would see advertised on daytime television, right? You remember that in the 80s? You'd be, like, watching a game show or something because it's summer break. And there'd be videos like, learn how to hit a golf ball better. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that kind of stuff. But that's the thing, like, even bad 3DO games that you will never play are cheap. That's, they're not cheap, I'm sorry, expensive. Like,
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
The opposite of cheap. Yeah, that's just the crazy thing about the 3DO. The junkiest games no one ever would want are still fetching a premium price.
Yeah, because there's completist collectors out there that'll pay it.
Yeah. And I got just a few other oddball ones. I have like, I got to get rid of some duplicates too. Like I don't know why I have 2 boxed copies of Chuck Rock for Sega CD. I don't really even want to play one of them, but I'll probably keep one anyways.
Yeah.
So just sort of random, as I've been kind of going through, just stuff that no chance. I'm not going to play it, and it's not something I want to collect. So I can make room for more junk, I guess. That's my logic.
Yes. Well, before you know it's going to be garage sale season, so.
Right.
Make room.
Who knows? Maybe I find a box of 3DO sports games to replenish my stock.
Exactly, yeah.
There's like one good 3DO sports game. Like the Madden football for 3DO is actually pretty good. And I think that's probably about it for 3DO sports games. But anyways, what have you been up to?
Last episode I talked about how I was messing with RetroArch and read ahead latency fixing. Well, apparently that doesn't work with every game. It has a built-in latency in the game already, so I already disabled that, and I'm only enabling it for games that I realize need it. So, we'll actually be talking about that in one of our news items. So I contacted a contractor that helped me with a few stuff around the house before to help redo my basement, where I have my arcade and where I record the podcasts. When we bought this house, there's like kind of two places in the basement. It's not a very big basement. The bigger area is where there's a mini bar and the projector and my chair where I record everything. And then the little part is where it's the only other part in the basement where I have my arcade stuff. Well, I'm flipping that all around. The only reason I set it up this way is because there was already a projector on this side when we bought the house. So my setup's going to be a bit more like yours, where I'm going to be able to record and have all my collectibles and stuff behind me. And I'll have a really tighter gaming setup where I'm closer to the screen and all that. And I'll finally be able to set up all my actual consoles instead of having to use RetroArch for everything, which will be really nice and save me a lot of time fighting with the computer. So I'm really excited for all that. He said you should be able to start in 2 weeks, so I'll keep you guys updated on that and put stuff up on Facebook and stuff. But we all know how contractors work. We've all seen the money pit, I assume. So, in 6 to 8 months, this project will be done. It's literally one wall I need to fix up. So I'll put up some before and after pictures. And then, sorry.
That's like a 2-day project for someone who knows what they're doing, I think.
Oh, totally. So, yeah,
right.
Exactly. I need to, fix one wall, like totally drywall it, paint it, sand it down, move the projector over there, and then all the cabling. Like, it's going to take me longer to set everything up, put the projector up and all that stuff. Yeah, I've been playing a game called Demon Tilt that recently came out on Steam. I think only Steam. It might be on other systems, but it's a Devil's Crush inspired pinball game. It's pretty cheap, 10, 12, 15 bucks, something like that. It's really fun. Yeah, it definitely reminds me of Devil Crush. Nothing will ever beat the Devil Crush soundtrack, but it does have great sound. I would say the color palette reminds me of Nightmare in the Dark, and if you're really down with JC, you're not going to like this game at all. Let's just say if this game came out in the 80s, it would definitely be part of the Satanic Panic. So I highly recommend that game if you like Devil's Crush or Alien's Crush. And I also I also purchased a Mega SD, that Sega CD SD card emulator. So after my basement is finally done, I'll be able to set that up and let you guys know how that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking at Demon's Tilt right now, and it looks pretty crazy.
It's fun. It's like a bullet hell pinball Devil's Crush.
Yeah, with like sort of this there's a lot of like pentagrams and other stuff like that. So it's not for everybody, which is fine. Like everybody can choose to play or not play whatever they feel like. And it looks. Honestly, it's kind of giving me a headache looking at it right now. A little too much flashing.
I mean, pinball has a lot of flashing, and bullet hells have a lot of flashing, and the difference between this one and Devil's Crush, it's a very similar setup. This has some rails, and ramps and stuff. How real pinball has that, and Devil's Crush doesn't. And Devil's Crush, the boss stages are in a different zone, I guess. Kind of warps your ball to a different zone. This, they just kind of come out in the main area. So yeah, highly recommend it. If any of our listeners play that game, even though it's not retro, feel free to email us about it. Email at retrogameclub.net. But yeah, that's about it.
So, we got a lot of, I think, actually good news this week. I mean, not this first one. What is this? Atari VCS. Someone is giving it a review, a very glowing review by PCMag.com.
So, yeah, at CES, I'm using air quotes, Atari let some people play the VCS and review it.
But they weren't actually at VCS. This was like, hey, we have a hotel room nearby. If you want to see this thing, stop by. Isn't that? I thought that was
actually, that's what it looks like.
We filled the bathtub with ice. We threw some soda pop in there. Come on over and
Yeah, and still people might not show up. So this thing, it's kind of your worst fears. It's kind of what everyone thought would happen, which is 2 really cool controllers. The old school Atari joystick modernized, and their kind of take on the Xbox controller. people really like the controllers. People like the design of the actual console. And people like that they make it really easy for you to boot up Windows if you want to in what's called sandbox mode.
Do you know what else boots up Windows and is the same price? A Surface tablet.
Yes, and probably about the same amount of power.
And the Surface tablet also runs Steam.
This will run Steam because you
in Windows mode. Yes, that's
yeah.
true.
So
if you purchase a separate Windows license and install Steam, yes, you could do that.
I did see, like, I don't think they actually launched any of the newer games for it, or maybe those weren't even new games. Like, I assumed, like, Centipede on it was a new Centipede because it had, like, a new looking logo and stuff, but I don't know. But, yeah, I bought this thing. It makes me feel dirty. So, we'll see, but it's not looking great. It's pretty much $300 so you could play 1,000 Atari games.
Right, which you can also buy at Dollar General for $19.
Or play on archive.org.
Yeah, or get them from Steam. So, yeah, I mean, I always sort of figured, like, they are going to ship something. It's certainly not going to compete against the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Omega. What's the new Xbox called? I don't even know.
Oh, Series X.
Series X. All right. So it's not. I mean, it's just not going to compete against those. It's going to be a niche system for people who want a thing that looks like an Atari 2600 in their family room.
Yeah. This is more of a conversation piece, I think. Now, again, it's not a bad processor. It's not a bad GPU. You know, it's a modern Ryzen APU. It's a great emulation box. You know, this is like the Ouya 2. Except more expensive.
Right, except 2.5 to 3 times the price.
Yes, so moving on.
Moving on. Mario and Luigi series possibly making a comeback based on trademark filings in
Redmond,
Argentina. What? So, okay.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought it was in Redmond, but that's just, these are Spanish trademarks.
Yeah.
Or is that Portuguese? Yeah, it's something.
Yeah. It could just mean that a developer there is going to license a mobile game called Mario and Luigi. I don't know.
Yeah, but, you know, we reported that the developer filed bankruptcy recently that did the Mario and Luigi series, so it'd be nice if this kept going somehow.
Right. I mean, they'll get someone else to develop it. Like, that's not. The company that did the Mario Luigi games was doing a great job, but like they could get another developer to pick it up and probably not miss too much.
And also, they developed it they put too much time into the 3DS 2 years after the Switch existed. I think that was a big part of it. Now, was that Alpha Dream's fault or was that Nintendo's fault? We don't know.
Yeah. So let's see here. There's a ROM hack. I want to get back to some ROM hacking here. This is a really cool one here. This is a ROM hack for Earthbound that changes it into a new Final Fantasy game. So imagine the game engine, you know, in play style of Earthbound, but in a Final Fantasy type of setting. And it's kind of a parody game. I mean, like the characters, like it uses different characters and enemies from different Final Fantasy games. It's almost like a Final Fantasy mashup type of game, but running in the Earthbound game engine. It's called Eightbound, and you can get this patch over on romhacking.net, and you can, if you have a legally acquired ROM somehow, you can patch it and give it a try.
Yeah, this video makes it look pretty advanced. It looks like they have some Mode 7 stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it visually still looks like Earthbound, like the towns and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not a complete like reskinning. I just thought this was, I mean, I don't talk about every ROM hack I see, but this one was, I thought, pretty easy. Pretty easy to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Earthbound fans and definitely a lot of Final Fantasy fans, so I think this could get a lot of downloads.
Yeah, the developer of VVVVVV, is that the right number of V's? So this is a sort of retro style game, but the developer released the source code to it recently.
Yeah, and I've never pronounced this out loud, so I don't know if you just say VVVVVV or is it just called V's? I think it's called that because in the game, the only thing that, if you haven't played the game, it's instead of jumping, you reverse gravity. So it's kind of a platform puzzler in that vein, but the only thing that can kill you are spikes that look like V's. So that's why I'm assuming it was called that, but I don't know what you call the game.
Yes.
And I've never heard anyone else pronounce it out loud.
So yeah, you can use it. There's a custom, he wrote like a custom license for it, I think, more or less, so you can't fork. I mean, really, it seems like it's written in such a way where it's not easy to fork, but you can definitely compile it and run it yourself, and make your own hacks or whatever you feel like.
Yeah, I'm clicking through GitHub now just to see. So it's just C++. I just wanted to see if it was like a solution or if it was just straight C++, which it looks like, which is good. Solutions drive me crazy. So that is good. Let's see the mobile version. It is... What's an AS file?
I'm assuming assembler, which you could put in any format you feel like. Ultimately, the extension is arbitrary.
Yeah. But just looking at... Oh, yeah, that looks like assembler. So anyway, pretty cool.
Yeah, I like. I always like when developers do this. There's an annual coding competition. I'm going to get the name wrong here. Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit competition. It's using a utility developed by Sensible Software way back in 1987. And they do a competition every year. The 2021 opened up just recently. So if you're interested in doing a Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit games, you can. But it's also kind of cool because you can download a bunch of free games through this also.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Is there a deadline here?
Yeah, it was probably yesterday. Knowing this, May 31st.
Oh, good. You got some time.
Yes, it started January 3rd, and it goes until May 31st.
And I didn't get a chance to read the exact language this uses, but I mean, do you actually have to know programming or?
No, it's using the Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit.
Oh, so it's pretty much drag and drop.
Tool.
Yeah.
Game building tool from the late 80s. So it's similar, not as advanced as like RPG Maker, but like it was just an engine made, something to make your own custom shooting games.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Similar to, let's say it's similar to like Gary Kitchen's Game Maker, something like that.
What else do we got here? Retron Jr.
Yeah.
So you could play your Game Boy games on your HD TV.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have a Game Boy player, this is a thing. Hyperkin teased this a few years ago, and it's now apparently have a working model of it. It plays Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. It has both like regular old school AV out and HDMI out. Looks like it's powered through USB C3 and has a wireless Super Nintendo style controller.
It's a nice controller.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a Game Boy player, then it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Game Boy player, I don't really see much of the advantage. I'm really more excited about the analog portable system that's being developed.
Oh, yeah. Is there a price tag on this?
Do not see it yet.
Price and availability are unknowns at this point, but should arrive in 2020.
Yeah, I think it'll be between $79.99 and $99.99. That's my guess.
Yeah, that sounds
Just basing.
about right.
Yeah, I mean their 2600 system is around $70. So I figure that's kind of the price point they have for single game player thing. Or this plays 3 different systems. It's essentially a single game system player. It's essentially a Game Boy Advance player because Game Boy Advance plays everything.
And, good point. And also, yeah, you have to already own the games or an EverDrive, but yeah, it doesn't have any built-in games.
No. Did
This one's
Zach
mine.
added this article, did he, or did you add this?
I added this one.
Okay.
So, this isn't really an article. So this is on Kotaku, and the title is "A Very Frosty, Expensive Game Boy," and I guess it's modern art of a resin 3D printed clear Game Boy shell. I guess it sound right. It's $500.
It doesn't play Game Boy games.
No.
It's
Just
like
like a
the
piece of
banana
art.
duct tape to a wall, right?
Yes. Yes. Except not as expensive, and no one can eat it. Well, you could try to eat
You
it.
could try. Very slowly, you could eat it.
So
Over the course of many days, you could eat it.
1,000 of them are made. Oh, I'm on this guy's website, and he has some horrible artwork.
Well, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the person that came up with this would have other horrible kind of...
So you could get for 2,500 pounds, you could get a 3D printed cassette tape that has some cracks in it.
Uh-huh. Right.
And other
I
other
can get a
things
cassette
like
tape
that.
with cracks at Goodwill.
Yeah, this is... Yeah, so very strange. Somehow this made it on Kotaku and then made it onto our podcast. Next, from Hackaday, an article, Raspberry Pi 4 and the State of Video Game Emulation. So this is a nice, long, detailed article pretty much about how with the release of the Raspberry Pi 4, we're kind of in a golden age of emulating. And this doesn't even take into account, that FPGAs are becoming more and more popular and affordable. It goes into how the Raspberry Pi 4 can support, the run ahead mode that I was talking about, the read ahead for latency reduction. It could do a bunch of shaders and scan lines and stuff, all with just this $25 box, $25 motherboard. Yeah, it's a really nice article.
Yeah, I was thinking I was not going to buy a Raspberry Pi 4, and really looking this article over and seeing like full speed Dreamcast and like I don't know. I'm back to thinking I might, if I need time, if I have time for a project later this year, probably Raspberry Pi 4 and making another stab at getting like RetroPie to work.
Yeah,
Might be.
yeah.
No, again, RetroPie worked great for me. I ran it for a long time. I just I kept running into issues where like I never really got a controller working for it that I liked very well. So if I could go back and try it again, like I would probably, I don't know what I would do differently that would make me not hate the experience of trying to get controllers to work.
Well, you
I
have
would
to
figure
stick to
something
one
out.
controller, and now it has it has Bluetooth 5 on it, so even faster, less latency than the
Yeah.
old Raspberry Pis. So
I think the key is, as you said, never change controllers.
never.
If you're like me and you're like, well, I have like 5 different controllers, I want to see which one works best, it ends up putting the system into some kind of state where nothing ever works. That's kind of where I got to on it.
And then you're like me, where you're fixing your stuff more than you're playing video games.
Right.
Yeah, I'm using air quotes. I had to buy a Raspberry Pi 4 recently because my brother-in-law texted me, "Hey, have you ever heard of a Raspberry Pi? I hear it can play every game ever." And I said, "Yes, I have a podcast about them. Do you want me to send you one?" And he wrote back, "Yes, please." So so I'm sending him one of my 3B pluses all set up, and I just needed another Raspberry Pi. What can I say?
Yeah. Now these aren't. You said they were. The Pi 4 is closer to 50, right? In terms of the
Well,
base
there's
price?
3 different ones: 1 gig, 2
Okay.
gig, and 4 gig.
Okay, 2 gig is around 50. 1 gig is around 40, and 4 gig is about 60
I think
right now.
I think you're.
And then
those
you know you
are
gotta.
high prices. Does that come in with
I'm
other
going off the
stuff?
Amazon. I'm going off the Amazon price. I don't know if buying it directly from. I know if you buy it directly from the Pi Foundation, the list price is cheaper, but then you don't have free shipping, so I think it evens out.
Well, let's.
But then you got to
see.
buy an SD card and maybe a case and some heat sinks. You're going to get to $100 pretty fast on this thing.
Yeah, yeah, but you're buying if you buy a Raspberry Pi 4 now, it's a really good time because they just released the latest firmware that it really makes it run a lot cooler, and it throttles because of that. It throttles a lot less. See, I'm on Adafruit right now. I don't even see the 4. I just see the 3B plus.
All right. OSSC Pro Concept. What is that?
Yes. Okay. Do you know what the OSSC is?
I do not.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked. So this is something I use quite a bit, actually. It stands for Open Source Scan Converter, OSSC. And what it does is you can plug in RGB, composite, you name it, and it converts it to HDMI or DVI. So I use it from my Dreamcast VGA and convert to HDMI, and it does it with 0 latency. This is like the best you can buy converter because it's no lag. So it's been out for a long time now, and this is the new version that's not quite out yet. This is the Pro, but they just are kind of teasing it. Its updates are it has a built-in FPGA that is the same kind that the Mister uses. So there are speculation that some Mister cores could be built or put right into this. So you can emulate right on this thing. It also has a line multiplier, so I guess that makes it so it can upscale better at no lag. I'm sure I'm saying something wrong about that. But so, these are really popular devices. If you want to upscale your retro stuff to HDMI, I highly, highly recommend OSSC. And even if any of our listeners are thinking about projects with stuff like this, shoot us an email. I don't have to read it on the air or anything. I can help guide you on this stuff because I've really played around with these quite a bit. But yeah, this is kind of a big deal in the retro community.
Nice.
Yeah. So what next? Oh, Nintendo Life.
Things. Yeah, a couple more things. There's just a note here that the versions of Doom and Doom 2 that are on the Switch, apparently there is a big update for them. And it now lets you, I guess, support add-ons, which means you can play the episode 5 Sigil that just came out on there.
Yeah. And I guess it fixes a lot of frame rate issues as well.
Yes.
Which games from the 90s having frame rate issues.
Yes, a game that originally was capable of running on a 386. Now runs better on the Switch. So I bought Doom 1 on the Switch, but not Doom 2 yet. They're only $5. I guess I should just buy Doom 2.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I'm still not really thrilled with the controls on the Switch. So
I wonder how you get the add-ons. If there's an option to download them, or if you have to put them on an SD card, or what.
I do not know. I have to update Doom, and then I will let you know. I'll try, seeing if I can get a custom WAD in there or something. But yeah, seems I still haven't played Sigil yet, and it's really just I'd like to, and if I can play it on the Switch, I guess that would be fine.
Yeah, I tried to play it on my Vita and it crashed it, but it's because I have old emulators on the Vita I really have to update, so not John Romero's fault.
Yes. So another unreleased Satellaview game was found. I say unreleased is kind of a weird term for it. It was released at some point. I mean, it was broadcast to people who had a Satellaview, but there's no copies of it floating around. And it is a game called Cooly Skunk, which is a little platformer game. Reminds me of Wonder Dog in terms of graphical style. And someone found one, in a store in Japan where they sell, you can get like these backup, cartridges where people might have backed up their Satellaview games.
So explain Satellaview for people listeners that might not
so
know.
It was a modem device that was only, I'm going to get it wrong, but at a high level, it's a modem that was sold in Japan. Not really modem because it didn't go over the phone line. And
it was satellite TV, right?
Satellite TV, right? Satellite TV.
Yeah.
So like let's say once a week, I don't know. It was once a week, month, fortnight, whatever. On some interval of time, Nintendo would broadcast over satellite new games for the Satellaview. And then you would have them in the memory on the Satellaview. You could maybe store 1 or 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, these were not full-size games. These were usually smaller games. There was a Zelda game. Radical Dreamers is probably the one that people talk about the most. It was a sequel to Chrono Trigger, kind of a text adventure game. It was like a text adventure with some static graphics. Really great game, by the way. If you can get an English translation of it, it's a really cool environment and great soundtrack. It's for a game that was essentially free. I think it was a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was this? Punky Skunk? Cooly Skunk. Yeah, there you go.
Cooly Skunk.
I downloaded the ROM for it already. Have not tried it because I just saw it today.
This game does not look great. It looks nice. It just doesn't look fun.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And apparently this did come out for PlayStation in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Probably
Which,
a longer version, I'm assuming.
I wouldn't even assume that.
Yeah.
Whatever. One of those CDs that only takes up like 10 megs.
Yeah.
We
got, 2 controller-related stories, and then on to a topic.
Yes. So SegaBits.com has a story about that Retro Fighters Dreamcast controller you could now pre-order. It does support VMUs and jump packs. I'm still not going to buy this thing.
Wait, were these the guys that sent me 2
Yeah.
separate defective Nintendo 64 controllers?
Yes.
Okay. Don't buy this.
Yes, you were burned twice by them.
Now their rival company called Retrobit. It's confusing because all these companies have similar names. I have bought Retrobit controllers, and they are almost identical to the original hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think on like if you were blindfolded, even if you weren't blindfolded, because the only like cosmetic difference between the Retrobit Sega arcade fighter pad and the original is like the Retrobit has like a 20-foot long cord. Maybe not 20 feet. I'm exaggerating, I hope. The cord is a lot longer. So that's the only cosmetic difference. I think otherwise, I don't know if people could actually tell the difference.
Now, this is a nice looking controller, but there's so much negative press on their Nintendo 64 controller that I just can't.
Yeah. Anyhow, so they're doing a Kickstarter.
They did a pre-order.
Okay, whatever it is.
And I clicked on it during the time. I wasn't going to buy it. I just wanted to see if they sold out or anything. And their site crashed for me during that time. So
Good. Same people running the site made the Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah.
So, and then last, Modder creates custom GameCube controller for the Switch. So somebody sawed their GameCube controller in half and wired it into some Switch things, and now you can, I guess Smash Brothers fans will love this, right?
Yeah, a lot of people, their favorite controller for some reason is the GameCube controller, and this guy sawed in half I think a Wavebird GameCube controller, and it is the exact height as the Switch. Exact. And
The Wavebird is, by the way, one of my absolute favorite controllers. I don't like seeing them getting cut in half, but
this is pretty cool still.
yeah.
They also destroyed some Joy-Cons for the innards, and this thing's pretty neat. I mean, I'm not gonna do this, but
no, man. I gotta find some new in-box Wavebirds, man. They are. Have you used a Wavebird?
yes, they are nice.
Yeah.
I think you could. I think they're pretty common to find new in box. At least at there's a store around me that has a few.
Really, I like get a backup one.
And that is news.
All right, I'm gonna do kind of a improvised featured topic this week. I'm gonna talk about. We talked a little bit about text adventures last episode. Choose your own adventure or text adventure games. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a tool people can use to create text adventure games called Inform. So Inform is it's a system originally sort of inspired by Zork to build text adventure games using, a high-level language that regular humans can understand, right? The most recent version of Inform is called Inform 7, and the whole idea behind Inform 7 is you can describe the world you're trying to create, and it does most of the work of generating the text adventure behind that. So if you're creating a game that, what's a setting you might want to have a text adventure in?
Let's say feudal Japan.
Okay, let's do Abandoned Schoolhouse, because it's really going to be easier.
Okay.
So you would say, like, you would start with, like, describing a classroom. A classroom is a type of room. A classroom has doors. A classroom has, desks. Like, you describe the characteristics of it, and then you'd be like, the science lab is a classroom. Inside the science lab are beakers, and then you describe, like, the attributes of a beaker or a desk or chair or whatever. And then when the player plays a game, assuming you've assigned all the attributes correctly, you say, you're in the science lab, and you type look, and it says there's beakers and desks and junk, right? Or feudal Japan, you could do the same, I guess, be like, so-and-so is a city. Cities have people and homes and whatnot. That would be really big. That would be hard to do.
So it's kind of like, in programming speak, it's a big inheritance system. Okay.
Big inheritance system, exactly. Yeah. So if you understand inheritance in programming, it helps, but I don't really think you have to.
Okay.
I really don't. But you describe your whole world in terms like that, and then you can walk through. People have done some really, like, crazy advanced stuff in this. Now, I played with this something like 5 or 6 years ago because I had this this idea, this thing that turned into this bad Genesis demo I wrote. When I was trying to figure out, like, the story and the scenes, I actually did the first draft of it in Inform 7. So you could kind of, like, walk around the environment and see things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I changed gears because I realized I'm bad at describing stuff. Like, if you listen to this podcast, you already know that.
Yeah, that's funny. I was just going to say that.
Right? Like, the carpet is brown. That's, like, as far as I can go in terms of describing stuff. I'm really bad at, like, describing what a thing looks like. So then I'm like, well, yeah, this is going to be really terrible because every, store in this mall is exactly the same, more or less. And, I just don't know how to, like, describe this stuff well. So I scrapped it and said, I'm going to write a Sega Genesis game. But the storyline, like the whole basic storyline, I had kind of already plotted out in Inform. So it just wasn't any good, and I'm never going to release it to anybody. So that's gone. But there's a couple links here. Out on wikibooks.org, there is a tutorial, a book explaining how to do, a very basic game and, create objects and verbs and aliases. Like, it talks about how you could create, you give an object called car, right? Or well, no, let's do it differently. Like, let's say you're out in feudal Japan, and for some reason there's a 1987 Ford Taurus parked outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could tell it to say, like, if the player types, enter car, that means the Ford Taurus. Like, you can say, understand car to mean Ford Taurus. So if people call things by other names, it can work.
So when you create the game, what does it compile to? How can you run the game?
Yeah, so there's basically a runtime for Inform that is similar to it's sort of based on like the Z Machine. I mean, this was all inspired based on Zork, which had common runtime. So they have a runtime for this that runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. There's a separate build for Raspberry Pi also. I don't think there are mobile builds, but I suppose getting the Linux build to turn into an Android. I mean, these are games that would be kind of awkward to play on a mobile phone anyways.
Yeah.
I can't really imagine it's a lot of reading. And then there's another site here called the Interactive Fiction Archive, which is just piles and piles and piles of free games, including they do annual competitions, and you can see all the different games people create. I mean, there's 1,000 different text adventures out here.
I didn't know this existed. This is pretty neat.
And some of them are really short. People have done huge worlds in some of these games. So if
you could pretty much create a MUD with this.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
It's not multi-user, so I guess single user version.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that's kind of how I prototyped. Like, I had a story idea. How does it work? Who are the people? What are the settings? Did okay. I mean, again, I would never ever play the game that I wrote, but they also have some kind of choose your own adventure style games that are similar to like Twine games. I'll probably talk about Twine in another episode, but that's another system for building, text adventure type of games.
Can you program in a quest? So if you get to an area, you have to grab the chalice and take it back to a certain place.
Yeah.
And...
Oh yeah, you could do something like that. It's been a while since I played with it, so I can't explain the mechanics of doing that, but absolutely you can do that.
Very cool.
Well, you could basically while the player has this item, X things happen, or this door can't be entered, or whatever. I mean, you could lock stuff down. You could basically take almost any idea you have and implement it.
There's
all about how good you can
systems and all that.
What was that?
There's battle systems and all that.
I am not aware of a battle system, but there might be. I suppose you could if you wanted to do those old D&D game books where there were battles in them. I guess you could probably put together something like that, but I don't know how.
I'm looking through the recipe book right now. I'm not seeing anything about that really.
Yeah.
But pretty neat.
Yeah, but you can create your own. You can create new verbs. So you could probably create a system if you knew how, or if you knew how to do it. I mean, you'd have to be describing the fight. I mean, you'd essentially say cast spell fireball or something. You could actually write something like that, sure. Or you could create spells and weapons and equipment. Yeah, I guess you could probably do that. You just have to figure it out. There's not anything native to it.
Well, cool.
But don't go into trying this lightly, like I kind of did, and that's why my project. I'm like, well, this can't be very hard. And then, as you start playing with it, you're like, wow, this is to really make a full game. You have to. I mean, it's at least a year of work.
Yeah, for anything you would want to, for anyone else to see.
Mm-hmm. All right, you want to talk about some Game Club games?
Yeah. This episode... Oh, yours is first. Let's do yours first.
Yeah, so I went with Casino Kid. And I did play, an hour or two into the game. So it's a pretty simple game. You have arrived at a casino. And your goal is to work your way up to become king of the casino, which you do by alternating between blackjack and poker games. And there's different blackjack tables in the casino and different poker players. And you advance, like you have to go to the first poker table first. You win that, and then you can do the second table. You have to kind of go around and talk to people to figure out what order you're supposed to do them in. But you can't just go like straight to the last one. And I say poker table, I meant blackjack table. So you start out by playing blackjack. You earn some money from blackjack, then you play some people one-on-one in poker. And it's regular old school 5-card draw. It's not like Texas Hold'em or whatever is popular nowadays. And the characters, depending on who you're playing against, they have different tells. Sometimes it's obvious. Most of the time it is.
And that's why you have to talk to the people, because they tell you what the tell is, kind of.
Right. The other people in the casino will give you hints about your future opponents. The blackjack games, I don't know why I keep calling it poker. The blackjack table, it seems to me like those are predetermined. Like, I don't think there's really great RNG on the blackjack games. In the poker games, I think there's some RNG. I don't know if you play the game, if you get the exact same. If you played the game the same way every time, if you would get the same cards. I did kind of take a peek at a speed run because I was curious, and it sure looked like the speedrunner knew exactly which hands to bet on, which ones not to. So
I think I watched that same one, because he's going pretty fast.
So either you're doing it with like a memory, like either you have it's an emulator and you can see you can see the opponent's cards. Maybe, I don't know. I guess in blackjack that doesn't help that much because it's the next card up that you care about. But yeah, I mean, it's not like, as casino games go in the 8-bit era, it's lacking. It doesn't have as many games as poker and blackjack on television. It's just 2 casino games, and virtually every other casino game of the era has, maybe 4 or 5 different games.
And some walking around and talking to people.
Right. It has walking, which not all the other games have. I think maybe King
Exactly.
of Casino. Does King of Casino? I guess I should go try King of Casino again. I think maybe that has a little bit of it. So it's kind of a neat game. I think it's okay in small doses. I think I played through, 3 or 4 opponents and then said, all right, I've had enough.
That's what I did too. And that's when I started watching the video.
Yeah. So there you go. Casino Kid. Fun little game, but very little. Like, this would not be a full game today.
And there is a sequel, I looked up.
There is, and it's super rare. I have not played the sequel. I guess I could play it in an emulator, but that's one of those games that is like, I forget how much it is on eBay, but I think it's a stupid expensive game on eBay.
For a game that's probably not that fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's... Yeah, so I'm seeing someone is selling a copy right now. The cheapest one I see is like 120 is the asking price.
Oof, wow.
It has very 80s box art, I'll just say that. Now, they do add some new games. I guess you can play roulette on it too now. The screenshots for the poker game look like it's the exact same game.
That's what I thought too just in the screenshots.
Yeah, I mean, if I found it at a yard sale, I would buy it, of course, but not my thing. All right, so you want to talk about some Micro Machines?
Yeah, so I played Micro Machines on the SNES, and it was developed by Codemasters, but it's on everything. NES, Amiga, Game Gear, you name it. GameCube, Xbox, Game Boy Advance. Released in 1991. Yeah, it's a top-down racing game. The controls remind me of that arcade game Sprint. I don't know why I kept thinking about that while playing this. Pretty loose controls. I like this game a lot. And what you are, if somehow you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what Micro Machines are, they were 80s and 90s little toy people would collect of very tiny cars with some guy who spoke really fast selling them to you. And shockingly, it was a good video game. You play on like a kitchen table, and the track is, I guess the lining of the track is like Cheerios. Sometimes you're a boat, and I guess you're in a bathtub, and those are bubbles around you that you run into.
Yeah, the boat when it's bathtub, yeah.
And so that's all pretty clever, kind of like the what was that game we played recently? Oh, Monsters in My Pocket.
Yes, yeah. You're right. It's very similar.
And they use parallax scrolling really well in this game because, if you're on a table and you're jumping from one table to a countertop, there's that different speed that the floor is underneath you. You could fall off the table and, you don't die. You just turn into some smoke and it starts over. But, yeah, really fun, kind of a fast-paced game. I feel like this game would really be helped by having HD graphics or something. If you could see more of the track in front of you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't get good at this game until you memorize the track. It was very well received, but that's really all I played was the SNES version, and also the reason was I was fighting with RetroArch because this is a game that did not support read ahead. And it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. So that is why I only played the one version. I think back in the day I played the NES version. And I'd really like to go back and play the Game Boy Advance version because I find that games that were on the SNES and then got ported to the Game Boy Advance, usually they're better on Game Boy. But yeah, it has 2 modes you could play in. Yeah, I highly recommend this game. I guess it's on your mobile devices now. Or at least the sequel is. I never played the sequel. But yeah, I'm assuming you own a few copies of this one.
Yeah. So I played the NES version, which is on a gold cartridge. It's, a unlicensed game. There's 2 variations of the NES version. There's the gold cart that plays on a regular NES, and the one I don't have, which is the Aladdin deck version.
Aladdin deck version.
The Aladdin enhancer for the NES. Have you seen that?
Oh, I forgot about that thing.
Right. So there's a version. I don't have an Aladdin for my NES. I'm pretty sure Angry Video Game Nerd covers this. But it's actually, like, as far as unlicensed NES games go, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best. So it has all the things that you talked about. Obviously the graphics are a little bit lower quality than the Super Nintendo version, but they're still very, very good. And yeah, the scrolling is fast. The whole game is very, very fast paced. And it has all the settings you described. There's at least a dozen different courses, maybe as many as 20 on the NES version. The one thing I wasn't huge on is, like, the AI in this game is terrible. If you lose a race, you are pretty much the worst player on Earth.
Yeah. That's what I found also. And I was the worst player on Earth until I figured out that it was my RetroArch that was messing me up.
Yeah,
because I was like, this handles way worse than I remember it from my childhood. So yeah.
Yeah, you honestly, you'll end up lapping the AI a lot of times in this game. It's just terrible. I don't know if the AI doesn't know how to use the accelerator button. Like, it's just not good. Otherwise, though, yeah, it looks great. Maybe it's meant to be 2 players. Maybe no, you couldn't do 2 players on this, could you? No, not. It would be a terrible experience, I guess. Because there's no split screen mode or anything.
Exactly, and it can't pan out or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that wouldn't be any good. But yeah, it's still a fun game. It's definitely one of the best unlicensed games, and better than a lot of licensed racers.
I would really like to go back and play some of the other ports of this.
Yeah.
But I'll probably just end up going on YouTube and watching them.
It's like, I think I own I own a couple other versions. I don't know why I decided to only NES, but I should have played more. I'm looking on eBay, and the loose NES game is still going for about $25. This is not cheap. I like one of the auctions I'm looking at right now. It's clearly a copy from a video store, and there's a sticker on the NES cartridge that says, "Please rewind tape."
Wow.
Yeah. That would be a great product, the NES Rewinder. You could probably trick a couple of people back in the day with that.
Let's see. The Game Boy Color version is $9 for buy it now. Not too bad. Yeah, the SNES one, 6 bids at $5.50.
Yeah, not really. I couldn't find any cheap ones here. Game Gear, $27. That can't be very good. And it's in some weird... I've never seen this Game Gear cartridge before. Very weird shaped cartridge.
There was a Micro Machine 64 that I've never played.
Okay.
I'll have to check that one out as well. But yeah, I spent a little bit of time with this one this week, as much as possible. I wish I had more time to, I like to go through all the different versions. All the different ports.
Yeah, that's going to take some time. You want to tease the next episode of games?
Yeah, we have an accidental wrestling episode. I'm going to go with Battle Royale on TurboGrafx 16.
Okay. I'm going to go with Royal Rumble. I have to say it slowly because I, for whatever reason, never learned to pronounce the letter R correctly. But yeah, that is the great thing about Royal Rumble is it's a week from now. It's actually my favorite WWF event of the year. I don't know why. I've always really enjoyed that event. So I'll be watching that in a week, and I'm not going to specify a version. There are many different games for many different systems. I know which one I'm going to play. I'm not going to tease it yet, but I know exactly which one I'm going to play. But go ahead and try any version of it.
Is there one for the 64?
There is not one for the 64. There are a variety of WWF games for the 64 that may have a mode. Yeah, they may have a Royal Rumble mode, but there's not one with that as a title.
Okay. Yeah, so if you play any of those games or any other game we have ever talked about ever, please email us and let us know what you think. Even feel free to recommend other games. Email at retrogameclub.net. Yeah, you want to go into some feedback?
Yeah, we got an email here from Adam. He said he enjoyed playing Empire Strikes Back in the Stella emulator. He also enjoyed playing it on the ColecoVision, where it is called Battle of Hoth. He liked the interview with Jason Moore. It reminded him of all the video mods he's done to retro systems over the years. For this reason alone is why he chooses to emulate retro consoles. The most recent video mod, which is still being completed, is a component mod for the 2600 using Tim Worthington's mod kit. I'm not familiar with that. We're going to have to look at that as a future
Yeah, we're
project.
definitely going to have to check that out, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen component out for these systems, and I've seen like SCART or RGB. I've seen all kinds of crazy ones, but I'm not familiar with this one. He says, the mod looks great on modern TVs and has an optional button where you can that you can install on your controller that lets you do reset, select, and switch palettes. So basically the stuff you would have to go over to the console for.
I'm looking at this ColecoVision version of Battle of Hoth, and wow, this is way different. I'm going to have to play this one. Totally different game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, same basic mechanics, but yeah.
He also says he has the Retron 77, and he actually really likes the way the graphics look upscaled. And the cartridge labels face toward you instead of backwards. It's kind of a small thing, but he likes being able to see the label art, which I get. I actually kind of like that too. Or perhaps he's always had the 2600 facing the wrong way. No, I don't think so. So the controller ports are on the back of the console, which seems kind of weird. He said he didn't own a 2600 growing up, so maybe he's been doing it wrong this whole time. Wait, the controller ports for the 2600 are in the back. I misread that. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Yeah, no, I think if you go back and look at how the 2600 was made, I think the idea was you would, because the 2600 had like a mile-long power cable. I think the idea was like the console would actually be sitting next to you on the couch or something.
Yeah, you would want to pull it up, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was why. So he played Vice City back on the PS2 when it first came out. He thought it was, the open world is pretty impressive, and it's kind of a good guilty pleasure game, like playing an open world Duke Nukem. And he was kind of shocked that at the time his parents allowed his 9-year-old brother to play it, because they had no idea what was in that game. My former podcast, we used to have a segment about eBay stuff, crazy bad prices on eBay, and have we considered doing a segment like that? Short answer, no, because I got really burned out on doing that. And borderline hated it after a while. So,
well, yeah, when we first started this podcast, I asked you about that. And you said out of everything in your old podcast, that took the most amount of time, right?
It did, because you don't want to talk about the same 5 things I mean, there's tons of stuff on eBay, but you tend to get into a spiral of like, oh, look, VGA graded Earthbound, $8 bajillion. You know, like, oh, Nintendo that someone uses as an ashtray, $40. Like, it's just kind of like this. Like, there's sort of a circle of like the same things that keep coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, probably not ever gonna do that again.
But if people have suggestions for segments on this podcast, please keep them coming. Other than that one,
yes.
Other than Hugh's former podcast segments, we are open to all.
Yeah, that's not. Probably will not do that. Again, email at retrogameclub.net. Please send us some feedback, or I guess you can go out to the Facebook and click the email button.
Yes. And when you do that, it auto-populates an email that asks you for your phone number. Don't put your phone number in there.
Yeah, why does... wow, who knows? I don't have Facebook.
Because Russia probably wants to know.
Somebody, whoever's currently hacking Facebook, wants to know your phone number. I don't know. Yeah. I would say in general, don't put your real info online, ever.
Yeah. Well, all right. I guess that wraps up Season 2, Episode 3, right?
Yeah. All right, so thanks for listening.